Hey everyone, how are you doing today? Welcome to part 2 of our topic industry, which we started in the lesson of yesterday, and I hope you enjoyed and did a lot of learning. And today we are moving on to the rest of the topic, and hopefully we can be able to finish it and we do some trial exercises. So as we start today, let's just simply take a look at what we did yesterday. Basically the definition of industry, which we said is the work and processes involved in the collection of raw materials and transforming them into finished products. We also looked at several classifications of industries, where we mentioned primary industry, secondary industry, tertiary industry, and quaternary industry. And I gave you several examples of those industries, and I mentioned that this topic mainly concentrates on the secondary industry, which is the transformation of raw materials into finished products. So as we start this lesson today, let's take a look at this very beautiful picture taken from Rwanda, the land of 1,000 hills. You can see several hills, but right in our foreground there is we are seeing so many buildings, and of course, if you are very critical, these are industries. So I'm not sure how many of you know what place this is, but this is Kigali Economic Zone, an area that was designated by the government to house different new industries that we are locating in Rwanda. So basically what I'm introducing right now is a section of this topic called industrial location. So let's take a look at some details. So where an industry is located is very important, depending on the type of industry, the nature of raw materials and other inputs needed, and the nature of goods that are being produced. In the previous lesson, I remember mentioning about market-oriented industries and raw material-oriented industries. So basically, we're going to put those into perspective in this topic. So some industries, not necessarily producing similar or related products, may choose to cluster in one industrial zone or park, and this is known as industrial localization. So basically this is a typical example of what I've just shown you in the other picture. We have an area that has so many industries producing different kinds of goods, but they are located in one place. So that is called industrial localization. And then outside Rwanda, in Germany, there is a place called Ruhr Industrial Complex, and this is a place that has so many industries. It started way back with production of coal, and then many industries came in because of the energy that was being produced from coal. We will look at some details a bit later. So when a number of industries producing similar or related products group themselves together in the same industrial zone or park, this is what we call industrial agglomeration. Remember, I gave you an assignment to research about this term, industrial agglomeration, and I hope that you are able to get what it means. So basically what it means is having a group of industries in one area, but these industries must be producing related or similar products. We have very good example, the Silicon Valley in California, USA. This place has a variety of high-tech industries. We have examples like Google, YouTube, eBay, Logitech, HP, you know HP computers, Adobe, Intel. Intel is most of the computers, most of the laptops have that logo Intel, and these produce computer processors, among other industries there. So we'll look at some details later in the case study. Then I want us to take a look at factors for location of industries. Why do industries choose to specifically situate themselves in that particular place where they are? So we have a group of factors, and I'm going to talk about each one by one. Let's start with raw materials. In the previous lesson, we mentioned about raw material oriented industry. for any industry, they would want to be in a place where they have a constant or abundant supply of the raw material they basically want to use. And for the raw material oriented industries, we said that they have to locate nearer to the source of raw material, in case those raw materials are bulky and would involve a lot of costs to transport them to where the manufacturing will take place. So that is number one factor, raw materials. Point number two, let's go this way. We have power. This is electricity or energy. You very well know that industries use machines, and these machines of course will have to run using power, and therefore for any industry to be guaranteed of producing constantly, there should be a constant supply of enough electricity so that they can keep running all the time. We have another factor of land. Now this is in several forms. We have industries that require large surface areas because they need to put up structures that are going to be used in the production process. Previously I mentioned about Boeing, which has a single largest building on earth, and that means that they needed a place that had a lot of land to be able to establish their industry. Now also involved in land, we have relief, that the nature of landscape should be favorable for the establishment of the industry, and also probably the roads that would be used to bring in raw materials and take out finished products. So the land must be flat. Let's take a look at transport. Here we talk about roads, railway, pipelines, and also airports, and maybe even seaports. Several industries have to be located nearer to the transport network so that they can be able to bring in raw materials and take out finished products to the market. We have communication. This one is in form of internet, so that they should be able, the producers are able to communicate well with the suppliers in terms of making orders and other things. We go on this side, we have labor. Yesterday we looked at this, manpower. It's very important. While we have capital intensive industries, we also have labor intensive industries. For the capital intensive, they use very less human labor, but still they need labor so that those machines can be run by with computers, but these computers are also operated by man. And then where we have labor intensive industries, we definitely must have a lot of workers. This is why so many industries are located in the main cities of countries, because these are places that are highly populated, and they need the people to provide labor in the industries. Capital, although this is it is possible to transfer capital to any part of the world, but it is important that there should be money or source of money. This is why we should also have banks around so that they can be able to provide quick loans for the industries to operate. We have another factor here called market. This is where the goods or services are to be sold, so we definitely must have market. This is why for many industries they are established within the capital cities or in big cities or even in highly populated countries. The reason is they need to target to sell their products to the large population. Water is very important because water is used to cool machines in the production process, and also water can be a raw material in some industries, for example food processing industries, and also beverages, among other things. Let's go forward. So we have our other factors, government policy on location of industries. Now for every country, it is the role of the government to locate industries to specific places. I showed you the Kigali Economic Zone. This was the work of government that directed all new industries to be located in that specific area. We have climate. Definitely this involves heavy rainfall or moderate rainfall depending on the kind of industry. are sunny conditions or moderate temperature. It is important that an industry should be located in an area that has favorable climatic conditions so that people who are working are able to live well without having to go through very harsh climatic conditions. So this is why we need to have moderate temperatures. And of course, sunny conditions, sometimes we need to produce solar electricity if the industry needs to minimize on the cost of electricity. It could invest in solar panels and use the sunny conditions to produce own electricity and thereby reducing the costs. Another factor that you can look at is relief, that I've already mentioned earlier, that for an industry to be located in a particular place, the relief should be favorable, and this favorable condition that I'm talking about is having flat land, because it is very difficult to construct any structures, let them be houses for industries or houses for workers or even roads or railway lines. They must be established in flat areas. So it is important that the place should be flat. So there is going to be an activity that I want you to do. It's a quick one. I want you to take a look at the list of factors that I've mentioned, and I want you to classify them into these two physical factors and human factors, just trying to differentiate which ones are human, which ones are physical. Okay, so let's go on. Industries within the Silicon Valley can also be termed as footloose industries. This is another term that I gave in yesterday's assignment. I hope that you were able to look it up. So footloose industries, these are industries that are less dependent on factors that tie them to a specific geographical location. So these are called footloose industries. As long as they have suitable transport, energy and communication links, they can locate themselves almost anywhere in the world. So we can understand what this means. Footloose, it means they do not they cannot be in one specific area for specific factors. They can locate themselves anywhere in the world. Footloose, you can understand this word in layman's language. Footloose, the foot is not stuck on the ground, so they are not stuck in one specific location. We have examples of areas that have footloose industries. Here we have an M4 corridor, which is located in England near Heathrow Airport. So it has also a number of industries that are high-tech in nature, and they do not specifically have to be in a given location. They can locate anywhere in the world. They are not in that place because of specific factors as per se. We have another example, Silicon Glen. This one is found in Scotland. So like I mentioned, they are high-tech industries producing computers and softwares and hardware and electronics. Okay, let's proceed. We're going to look at a very nice case study of the Silicon Valley, which I mentioned earlier. So this is an industrial zone, or called the Science Park, with a high concentration of high-tech industries located around the San Francisco Bay in California. I hope you can understand what a bay is, and this bay is in San Francisco, just near the Pacific Ocean. Okay, so what are high-tech industries? Yesterday I also gave you an assignment on these high-tech industries. So let's take a look at what they are. These are industries in which technological innovation is emphasized. So the Silicon Valley is well known for production of computer silicon chips and other sophisticated parts used in devices such as computers, phones, planes, and other machines. So that is what happens in the Silicon Valley. Examples of industries in this industrial area include Google, YouTube, eBay, Logitech, HP, among others. ASUS, I hope you know ASUS, it makes computers. You know Mozilla Firefox, this is our computer, we call it a search engine, Mozilla Firefox. Intel, I mentioned, it manufactures the processor in computers. Most laptops have Intel. I'm looking at mine right now, it says Intel inside. So HP, you have computers of HP. Logitech, I am using a mouse right now made by Logitech, and you all know eBay, YouTube, etc. So those are high-tech industries. Let's proceed. Looking at this picture, we have logos of all industries that are located in the Silicon Valley in California. So let's take a look at some familiar ones. We will start with eBay, Intel, I mentioned this one, this is Apple, HP right here, Amazon.com, we all know Amazon, Netflix for those who enjoy movies, Adobe is right here, Yahoo, I have a Yahoo account, LinkedIn, probably some of you are too young to know what LinkedIn is, but you will definitely know about it as you grow up. Twitter, among others. So this is a whole list of industries. Of course, there are some more. SanDisk, some of you own flash disks that have this logo, so you can see high-tech industries. All right, so let's take a look at this question. Why is Silicon Valley an ideal location for high-tech industries? So what do you think? Let's take a look at a few answers. This question normally is on part C of your IGCSE Geography paper 1, so we need to be able to have examples, and so that you can be able to score 7 out of 7. So you can see Diablo range, so this is the one factor, close to Diablo and Santa Cruz mountains for pleasant scenery for workers. The scenery is simply the outlook of the landscape. So these hilly areas are very pleasant to look at, so that is important for people who live around and people who work there. You can see from the key, this black dot is university, so this is a factor. Close to universities such as San Jose, in California they call it San Jose, for highly educated workforce and research. So definitely, this being a high-tech industrial zone, it requires that people are highly educated. So the university provides highly educated people who work in these industries, and then a lot of research is also being done around the university for improvements in whatever they do. And then we can look at this, San Francisco. This is a very big city in California, so close to San Francisco for large urban market. So in industrial location, we said they should be located where there is a large population that will provide the markets for the products that they sell. So much of the goods are sold in San Francisco. Another one you can see from our key right here, we have airport. So there are several airports right here in San Francisco in California. So we say close to San Francisco airports to get products to the market. So this is basically the factor of transport. So air transport is very vital. Then right there we can see that we have a concentration of so many industries. So the point here will be companies are clustered. This means grouped together to share ideas. So company A can share ideas with company B and company C, so they are able to do innovative work together. So we have a question. I normally love highlighting questions from past papers so that you know what you're studying is very relevant as you prepare for your exams. So this is question C, which goes for 7 marks, as you know. For a named example you have studied, describe and explain the location of a factory or an industrial zone. So as we have just finished looking at the Silicon Valley, I would expect this space to be filled with the Silicon Valley. Probably you can even go ahead and say in California, USA, and then you give a little bit of an introduction about Silicon Valley, and then give about 5 or 7 factors that have led to the location. Remember to give examples as we've mentioned, and then you'll be able to get your full marks. In the previous lesson we mentioned about multinational industries, and we said these are industries that produce or that have factories in more than one country. And we mentioned an example of Nike. So Nike is one of the multinational industries that we're going to look at as a case study. So first off, I need to show you the number of products that Nike produces. I can see training clothes, these are sportswears. You can see the shorts, caps, you can see shoes. Most of them are used for basketball, but you can also have some for athletics. They have also gone ahead to produce jackets, t-shirts, and trousers, and then they have put their brand names on bottles, computer protectors, phone jackets, among other things. So this is Nike producing a variety of products. You need to remember these products in your when you are answering a question, especially in part C. So let's proceed and take a look at some details about Nike. I don't know how you call it, but I call it Nike. So Nike is a typical transnational corporation, or a TNC, with its headquarters in Oregon State of USA. And then this is a place where, of course, all decisions and research and innovations are done, and then information is sent to other branches or other production centers. It produces sports clothes like t-shirts, shorts, jackets, and shoes, such as we have brands of shoes. Some of you could own pairs of these. We have Nike Air Max 1, we have Nike Air Jordan 1, there is Air Force 1, and Nike Mag. If you get a chance to go in the Nike shop, you could take a look at some of these products. So Nike has 554 factories in 42 countries around the world, mainly in Asia. So some of these countries are Indonesia, China, Taiwan, among others. And here it goes ahead to say it employs about this number of people. So you can imagine how important these transnational industries are. They give jobs to so many people, so that's an advantage to the countries where they are located. So another thing, it uses cotton. Of course, these are raw materials. It uses cotton, rubber, and organic leather, and then synthetic leather. Now the difference between organic leather and synthetic leather is organic leather, of course, you can have skins of animals like cow and others, and then synthetic leather is leather that is manufactured from industry. So this is not very original as this. So these are raw materials that are used in making sportswear and footwear products. Much of these raw materials are supplied from Turkey, China, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, and some from USA. And they transport them, of course, using aeroplanes, trains, and vehicles. So these modes of transport are not only used to transport raw materials, but also to transport finished products to the different market centers. So you need to remember all these details while you're answering some specific questions about a multinational industry. We're going to take a look at an example of these industries. So the products of Nike are sold and used all over the world. Currently, it has more than 700 shops in over 45 countries. These are very good statistics and examples that you need to be able to remember while you're answering the question. So take a look at this question. Describe a named transnational corporation you have studied and its global links. This is very important, and its global links. So the name of transnational corporation, we could put here Nike, and then I extracted this from the marking scheme, and it gives us the content guide of the things that we must put in our answer. So you need to give the products that are produced by that TNC, and of course, if we are to talk about Nike, I've already mentioned or the things that they produce. Give specific examples of those products. If you say t-shirts, if you say shoes, you could go ahead and give examples of those shoes. Sources of raw materials, where do they get these raw materials? But first of all, what kind of raw materials are they using? So mention the types of raw materials they use and where these raw materials are produced or are got. we are looking at global links, because we've mentioned that these raw materials are got from different countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, China, India. So you need to bring those so that you can be able to answer the question, global links. And then where production occurs, still this brings us back to global links. In production, we've said it occurs in so many countries, which we mentioned. So remember to put at least 3 or 4 countries where production or where the factories are located. And then where do we have the markets? We've mentioned that Nike has over 700 shops in all over 45 countries. So this is still coming back to global links. How are the raw materials and the final products being transported? It's very important. So you need to mention, because they are manufactured in different countries, so they are transported using airplanes and then trains, and where we are transporting within the country, we can use cars. This is very important. Place specific references and then location details and names. Give statistics. I believe that I have involved a lot of these in the notes. So let's proceed. Nike manufacturing in Indonesia. So this is one of the countries that have that has a manufacturing factory for Nike. So let's take a look at some details. Nike's main activities are in Southeast Asia. We've mentioned this already, and up until recently it manufactured many of its trainers, the shoes and the clothes, in South Korea. In the late 1980s, labor costs in South Korea rose, so Nike decided to move production to Indonesia, where costs were lower. Of course, this is very ideal for profit-making companies. They need to be able to make as much profit as they can. So if the labor costs in South Korea increased, so they had to move to Indonesia, where labor costs were a bit lower. So we move ahead. Nike employs 30,000 employees across several factories in Indonesia. No, that means they have not just one factory but several factories, employing over 30,000 people. This is an advantage, that these TNCs come with the jobs. 30,000 Indonesians are being employed in Nike. So one of the factories is located in Jakarta. Jakarta is the capital city of Indonesia, located on an island of Java. So let's take a look at why is Indonesia an ideal location for Nike's manufacturing industry. Definitely, we have already looked at one, that the labor costs are lower. So let's look at it. Cheap labor costs. Workers in Indonesia will work for relatively low pay. This is compared to the other country where it was before, South Korea, where labor costs increased. Easy transport to large markets in Asia, Malaysia, China, and Japan. So the transportation is easy because Malaysia and China and Japan are known to have very good air transport, and of course good roads and trains. So there is easy movement of raw materials and also finished goods. Flat land in Jakarta and other locations such as Bandung or Bandung, depends on how you call it. What is important is the spelling. So this flat land is very important for building factories. We mentioned this already. Raw materials like rubber, very important here. Rubber needed for trainers and cotton needed for making textiles is available from other Asian countries nearby, such as Malaysia. So Indonesia is Malaysia is a neighboring country to Indonesia, and this has a lot of rubber and a lot of cotton that is needed in the production. Of course, rubber is used in the making of shoes, the rubber soles, and then we have the trainers, the t-shirts, and then the trousers and the shorts manufactured using cotton. So very important there. Government incentives. So incentives, these are advantages that the government may provide that benefit the industry. So the government of Indonesia has made it easier for large NTCs to set up in Indonesia by offering grants to set up in locations with high unemployment. So Indonesia targeted to reduce the rate of unemployment, and therefore it encouraged some of these factories to locate in some areas by providing incentives or free land, maybe tax holiday, so that these factories can set up in the areas without feeling a lot of costs. So that is important. So let's take a look at this question. Suggest ways in which factories such as that shown in figure, we're not providing this figure, may threaten the local natural environment. So how are factories threatening the local natural environment? Let's take a look at some of the answers. So when they say threaten, we are basically looking at the bad things that these factories bring to the natural environment around the place where they are located. So don't talk about things that are related to man. So we have emissions of gases which cause air pollution, of course, hence leading to global warming and can cause acid rain. And we all know about acid rain. It's not good news for crops and buildings. Another point is water and river pollution. So basically water pollution, which leads to the death of aquatic animals, of course fish, and that would cause food shortage in the area. Loss of natural vegetation through deforestation in search of raw materials, or probably to create land to grow some raw materials, among other things. So natural vegetation, which is very important for the natural environment, would be gone, and that's not nice at all. Birds, insects and animals could get killed due to poisoned habitats. For example, if the water pollution happens, that means that the water is poisoned and fish would die. If we cut down the trees, that means birds will have no place, animals will have no habitats, and probably they would either migrate or they will die. So if some plants, animals and bird species may become extinct because they no longer have a place to stay, which has been destroyed through deforestation in search of either raw materials or land for establishment of such industries. Impact on the ecosystem. We talked about the food chain in the topic of weather and climate and ecosystems. So the food chain is very important, and much of the food chain starts from the forests, vegetation, where animals get what to eat, those that feed on plants, and then other animals get to eat them. You know, a lot of things will get disrupted in the ecosystem if the vegetation is no more. There is noise from industries scares away wild animals, and this may come back to extinction of some animals or migration of animals to other areas. We have lots of tourists. If tourists would come to visit the vegetation or in a place that is very clean, or water that is very clean for swimming, if you do the water pollution, deforestation, tourists might not come anymore. And then industrial wastes may occupy usable land, limiting other activities. That is very obvious. So let's take a look at another question here. Name and state the location of a type of economic activity you have studied. We are studying industry right now, which is an economic activity. Explain how the economic activity may cause the natural environment to be at risk. So type of economic activity, you could put industry. Location, I mentioned about the Ruhr industrial complex in Germany, you could put that. How the economic activity may cause the natural environment to be at risk. These are the exact things that we have just finished in the previous slide. So you need to be able to come up with some good examples, come up with some statistical figures, so that you can be able to score a 7 out of 7. I will provide notes to my students so that they are able to get some details about the Ruhr industrial region. You can also be able to do some research over the internet and get some basic details about this area, especially the problems that it has caused to the natural environment. Okay, another question. Describe the positive impacts of a named transnational corporation at a local and at a national scale. So, positive impacts. NTCs not only provide bad things, of course, they come with a very good positive impacts. We have already mentioned one, employment, where Nike, for example, in Indonesia employs over 30,000 people. Okay, so name of the transnational corporation, you could go ahead and use Nike here, and then let's take a look at some of these. Employment, which increases people's income. So as you get a job, you work, you get income, and you're able to live some good standard of living. So that is very important. I'll be able to give some example of Indonesia, where Nike employs 30,000 people. Infrastructure development, roads, railways, and airports are being constructed or have been constructed so that these NTCs are able to have an easy way to transport both raw materials and finished products. So you could talk about one airport in Indonesia or any place that you want to talk about. Another one, development of skills among the local people, e.g. machine operation, management. These are some of the jobs that people do, so when they do them over time in these NTCs, they can get skills that even when this factory is not there anymore, they can be able to use these skills to be able to earn a living in other places. Another advantage, increased government revenue through collection of taxes from the NTCs. So government collects taxes definitely from these NTCs, and this increases its revenue, and then it can be able to use this money to manage other government projects, like maybe providing clean water, electricity, and other things. Increased market for locally produced raw materials. In Indonesia, they produce rubber, they produce other raw materials, maybe cotton or other things. So these raw materials, the locally produced raw materials, are able to get market. These NTCs will buy these raw materials to be able to produce their products. So that is an advantage. It's a good thing. Increased supply of cheap products from the NTC. So if Nike is operating in Indonesia, it is able to sell the t-shirts and the shoes at relatively low prices because they have not involved any transport cost. So they would sell them at cheaper prices, and this is to the advantage of the local people. Increased supply of other amenities such as water and electricity. Now, because these factories need water, they need electricity, so an area where they are located will have permanent or constant supply of water and electricity, which the local people would automatically benefit. So we have another advantage. It strengthens international cooperation between countries. Now, in the case of Indonesia, it's going to be in good terms with the home country of Nike. For example, this is USA, we mentioned, this is where the headquarters of Nike is. So USA and Indonesia will be in good terms because USA factories are operating in Indonesia, which is very important. So can see through that picture, these people are in the factory where Nike is manufacturing shoes. So it's very important. Jobs are being created right there, and those are some of the products that they can buy. So these are some other questions. Some industries in LEDCs are owned by transnational corporations. Explain how TNCs can bring both advantages and disadvantages to LEDCs. We have looked at these. So look at the good things, look at the bad things. For a country you have studied, describe the advantages and disadvantages of a transnational corporation locating there. So it's the same thing, advantages and disadvantages. Now this is section C, this is part C, so you need to be able to give good explanations, you need to be able to give examples, get statistics, so that you can be able to score 7 out of 7. Thank you very much. This